Well, supply chain. What if we lived in a world where we understood the progenitor of all manifestation and we could recreate the waveforms for every element, make hybrids of elements? We no longer had to mine things out of the earth. We never, again, have to transport goods around the planet. We can create those waveforms to create these elements in a 3D printer kind of operation, set up assembly lines where you can make any part made out of anything you want, manufacture anything you want. And then when you're through with it, reverse the process and eliminate all the need for landfills and everything else. That technology, that understanding is here right now.
Economists in Wall Street are sounding the alarm. Investors are ignoring the parallels between 1929, 99, 2007, and today. We are absolutely in the everything bubble, and investors are now betting on the Fed, threatening to raise rates 6 to 7 times through 2024. If the debt ceiling is raised, there will be an economic catastrophe. Learn how simple it is to add physical gold and silver to your portfolio ahead of the rise in inflation and predicted price rises. Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA. Call 1-800-356-4470 and get a free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer from 2016 to present, click on the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video.
And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with Dr. Barre Lando, coming to you live and correct from the beautiful state of Jefferson on the Smith River here on the border of California and Oregon. We are so pumped for the fall, even though it's been a little chilly, which should be fitting for today's guest, David DuByne from Adapt 2030. This is going to be a great one. David's returning. It's been about, 2 years since we've had David on. He was one of our first big guests on Alfacast, and he was so cordial enough to come on when we were just a little YouTube channel with 800, if that, subscribers, and really helped us out a lot back then. And we're just really excited to catch up with David and see what he's been up to.
But I'm just wondering from here to there, how they're going to get these farmers out here off their land that already own it for like umpteen generations. And we see all these new tax laws that you can't pass down farmland, or you get $1 million, whoop-de-doo, down to the next generation. But when you're looking at farms that average 350 acres out in somewhere like Kansas at $8,000 to $10,000 an acre, you're $2 million in the red, and they want 40% of that as a capital gains tax, even though it's your family passing you down this land. And then if you want to sell a portion of the land to pay the property tax or to pay the capital gains tax, then you're going to get a capital gains tax on the property you sold to pay the capital gain tax on the property that you were bequeathed. So then you're getting this downward spiral. So what are you going to do? Keep 50 acres of the 250 acres that your family owned for 200 years? And that's the way they're trying to do it in another legal sense. Thanks, Biden, for doing that. But that's the way it's coming down now. You get $1 million. And with all those hyperinflation, it could be $1 million is going to be 1 acre in the future. The plans are nefarious. And the way that money printing is going, the devaluation of the dollar is putting absurd amounts on all of the valuations of assets, including property. So when it comes down to capital gains, you're going to be hit with some staggering numbers of amounts of money that are owed to these institutions.
Yeah, and it's unsustainable in both directions. The government will not be able to survive. They just hired 500,000 new IRS agents, and good luck.
See, exactly.
Yeah, they have to eat too. And also, by the way, if you try to pay your taxes in silver, good luck with that. You're not going to accept that. And unfortunately, David, for most people, there's just too much of a learning curve on too many levels. I mean, we're growing food, dealing with, predator government agencies and all the above. And, because like Mike said, they've been watching Netflix. So unfortunately, there is going to be a lot of collateral damage with, with what's going on. When I was a kid, we allegedly, as a country, had 20 years of food put aside in silos and everything that would sustain the entire nation's population for that amount of time. And now I've seen that erode during my lifetime to the point where now they're actually paying farmers to burn their food, not to plant things in the first place. So it kind of makes me suspect that even though I'm convinced also that they know exactly what's going on, why on earth would they actually pile on the food shortage and make sure there's none around? Of course, we know the answer to that.
Well, and also what they're doing to really get people off the land. What did gruesome Newsom just do? We were talking about earlier this week. They are outlawing small motors in California. January 1st, 2024. You will not be able to use small gas motors off the road. So that means lawnmowers. That means chainsaws, generators, things that every person in the rural, anywhere, even small, lower middle class, lower income folks, gardeners in the city. People, they're pushing this whole electric thing, which is more damaging to the environment. That's interesting, David. I don't know if you saw that little piece of legislation come about this week. Unbelievable.
I did. And that would include water pumps and firefighting gear too, because a lot of that's pulling some heavy volume out of a water source to spray it to another source. What are they going to do? Say, well, you can't even put out your own fire because now you're under arrest or got charged with a felony because you started up a gasoline-powered water pump to put the fire out in your house because the fire services aren't working because they're all defunded and nobody's going to work anymore, but you can't still put out your own fire. You're under arrest. Now, oh, by the way, we're going to confiscate your land. They're going to write some little rider under there. If you're caught using because it would be like a drug act where if you're caught manufacturing whatever, they'll confiscate the land. Same thing. Well, if you're caught using a gas-powered motor, we're going to confiscate the land too. They're going to put all these riders and clauses inside there, on top of what there is out in the public, that I bet there's something buried down on page 700 in that law that says, by the way, if you're caught using this device, we're going to confiscate your property. And speaking of that, on a positive note, I found an Indian marker tree on my property out here. It went up the old highway and it was an old Cherokee trail. Now, the first times I ever saw it, I was like, wow, that tree is really interesting the way it's bent over like that. Never seen a tree like that. Why did I wonder if I fell in a storm and it's tried to grow back up straight again? But come to find out, looking at this tree, and I just stumbled into an Indian marker tree video one day and boom, the light bulb came on. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then I started to do a little research, and where the marker tree is, where the old logging road is, that's on my property, was part of the old highway back in the 1910s and 20s, which was a repurposed Cherokee trading trail, because it saves you about a full mile going down to the bottom of the valley and then coming back up the road here. Plus it's up because it floods down there. Sometimes at the bottom, it's a little bit low. So yeah, it was an old Cherokee trail. And what kind of markers are there from our past to still show you water sources and ways to, move faster through your environment? We got to start learning from the past to get through the future, because the collapses seem to be real planned at this moment. It's very apparent that this is a planned collapse. Nothing's organic. The cycles are known, so they're trying to do the damage control, but the collapse is on purpose to try to ride through and set up another structure on the other way out. But what can we learn from the past to go do a huge U-turn around all their plans that are trying to enslave most people? But again, very few are even aware of what's going on in terms of the surface level of control, let alone understanding solar cycles and riding on top of natural cycles to achieve agendas for, the reset of an economy. You just lose them in deer in the headlights there. And you're talking a very, very, very small percent.
Plenty of water in the area, because that's the most key thing. People are saying, well, what should I look for when I relocate? And I always say water.
Well, yeah, on the property, we have 3 streams that flow when it rains. But then down at the pond at the front of us over here, there's different aquifers that are coming out of the pond. And unbeknownst to me, where we're here now was an old Cherokee village back in the 16, 15, 1700s. It's even on some of the old maps. But then the guys during the Civil War used to camp right here at this pond. Because the thing about it, since it was spring fed, anything that was thrown in there would go down the stream and end up in the river a couple miles from here. So if you're looking at stationing troops, like there's all kind of waste and things that'll be tossed out. They had a full working toilet from nature, which would pull out of this big pond and continuously replenish it with fresh water, and then send the waste downstream. And again, I could see why indigenous would choose this here as a location. They have a lookout point in a couple areas. And again, a spotter, like where are you going to be? We have an area up here where we can see almost 360 degrees, but you can see all the roads coming in over here. You got 3 roads in different variety of areas where you can see all of them from the top up there. So it only take one person to be up there with a radio to be able to say, hey, there's somebody coming in here, here, here. And a water source, security, your ability to grow food in winters that aren't that brutally cold, that you could for a couple, 2-3 months, still run some heat in there, and communities, like-minded people. You wouldn't want to drop yourself in the middle of LA, because the people, forget about the city itself, but just the mind frame of people is not there. You know, out here in East Tennessee, it's still, you know, Bible Belt, God-fearing people, a lot of common sense, hardworking people. It's just, there's still a rule of law here based on what people will accept or not accept. If you're doing something nasty out here, they're not even going to wait for the police to come out. They're going to take the law into their own hands and stop you from doing that. You know, the stuff that can be gotten away with in a city, you're not leaving this place here. If you're going to try to do some of those things out here, the people just won't have it. They surely will. It's about their family safety, the safety of the community, and what's truly accepted as morally correct. Like, that's still strong here, super strong. And those are the kind of areas you want to be in, where there's still a moral compass that people abide by, where they will help each other based on what's going on, where they're not going, oh, I don't want to, you know, that somebody will actually stand up with a neighbor and say, whoa, that's got to stop. So what you look for, the land itself, but then the people around your land's a whole different other thing to, you know, to add into the mix. So you can find one perfect thing with the land, but you might be in a completely dire opposite of how people think. So you're looking for a combination of all of it, I think.
But going back just to finish up the comments about a small majority of people, or a small number of people necessary to make the change. And I was just remarking that, you know, when you get into the physics of that, you can actually, you know, explain how, you know, that old saying, when 2 or more are gathered in my name, well, that's, you know, what the suggestion was. And when you have groups of people all, you know, looking through a singular lens, the powers of manifestation just increase exponentially. And the other thing is when you are aligned with natural law, and natural law is not words on a piece of paper, it's an actual phenomena. Now you have the entire universe that you're drafting, and you know, then that makes what you're doing even more powerful. So natural law does trump everything. Mother Nature does bat last. And I believe that some of us who are taking our responsibility to be stewards of this land, you know, are you know, going to be better off than most, because we have all of those factors going for us.
Nothing more special than waking up and going up when it's foggy in the morning and just sitting there, knowing that you're not in a park, that nobody's going to come walking up and disturb your silence, and just, you know, visualize what you want to do with this piece over here. I want to trim this. We got to get the blackberry patch better over there. I want to clear out down to the creek so it's just grass there for easier access. You know, you can kind of use your imagination to sculpt the land as you sit there, because, yeah, I believe the same thing. I don't own this land. I purchased it to take care of it for the next generation, and then. So I look at it as the visitors in the natural sense on the land, whether they be bipedal or four-legged, whatever they are, they're welcome here. And I will take care and make sure that only we hunt out here in a sustainable manner, where, you know, it might take a deer per season or something, but not outrageously stripping the forests, and trying to live in harmony with it. Even the muscadine vines that were growing here, when we were, you know, clearing a portion of one of the tree lines, I really went out of my way to save the muscadines that were growing wild where they were. And we tried to put them up on trellises to get them to grow, but the berries or the grapes didn't really manifest that much this year. Yeah, sure, they still had leaves and they still ran down the wire and everything, but they didn't produce the grapes like they did when they were in a natural state way higher up in the trees. But to try to bring something out on the wild side and then sculpt it into a, you know, more what we're used to, you know, in a fashion on a wine vine in a farm somewhere, didn't work so well. But, you know, you got to experiment to learn what's going to work and what's not. Blueberries did great. All the wild blueberries around the property, trimmed them up last year, did a bunch of fertilizing and all these things. And they, you know, they take that year off after you prune them, but next year they should be producing an enormous amount of blueberries. So, you know, when I find something wild in the forest and it's already chose to grow there and there's 7 or 8 wild blueberry plants around there, trees, I'll sculpt around that and give them even more space to expand, more sunlight, and then, you know, do the proper fertilization for them. But the muscadines really didn't work that well this year for some reason. But, you know, it's my first try to bring a wild wine vine out and put it on a trellis.
It takes a while to really learn a piece of land. You know, we've been on this present farm for a good number of years now, and every year we learn new things. Every little space on the property, you know, 1 acre over here, it has entirely different attributes. So, you know, just for folks that, you know, are planning on maybe moving to the country and growing their own food, you know, there's a lot to it. There's really a lot to it. And it's a learning process. And also, more than anything, it's an internal process for yourself. It's just as far as reconnecting, learning how to listen, and, you know, to actually pull off to the extent where you can feed yourself. It's, you know, it's quite a feat actually, but it is doable if you stick with it. So David, you've been very generous with your time here today. Any parting words or subjects you'd like to bring up? You're such a wealth of information. You know, I don't feel like we've actually heard a lot of what you have to offer, but anything you'd like to finalize our talk with today?
Yeah, and that's a good question. You know, when we're going through this transition here in the next, you know, it's going to be fast. It's going to happen rapidly before 2024. Second magnetic field forming is going to have a huge reaction and effect on human perception, to the point where everybody on the planet is going to literally wake up and see through all of this programming. I don't know if they'll see the actual code going through the unified field here. Like, to that point, they're going to see it. So governments are going to have to respond in earnest. So, you know, what kind of population decline do you think that is going to happen here in the next 12 to 18 months, based on food shortages and the purposeful shutdown of supply chains and the purposeful shutdown of food production, to get people maybe so afraid and so fear-based that they won't actually awaken because they're so terrified, with the jabbity jab stuff rolling around their being, and then at the second time being really stuck in such a paralyzing fear state that they won't see what's literally in front of them that's deconstructed. You have a better glimpse of that. I'm just curious what you might think.
So we also see fall and rise of empire, and we could potentially watching that as we speak right now too.
Yeah, Michael, one thing on the crypto, you know, proof of time is going to be, you know, proof of work was the old, you know, and now we're coming into proof of time as a new protocol concept here for transaction and verification. So how do you see the crypto space moving forward from here? Proof of time is it. That's the only thing that's really going to make sense, because right now with it's, you know, it's supposed to be so decentralized, but it's really centralized back to the control of the miners. And the mining pools are gargantuan and multi-billion-dollar mining operations in themselves that are listed on the stock markets in some of these countries, because they have so much vast capital and they have, you know, acres and acres and acres of rigs out there as one single entity. I can't see that being anything decentralized. But bringing it back down in where everybody's computer across a full integrated network is, you know, chipping away at that, and versus one, you know, mining operation that solves the algorithm that then gets a reward for that. You know, it's coming in proof of time seems to be much, it's going to have to change too, because this whole crypto space, we've already, you know, when the China closed down and said, hey, it's illegal, and then all the computing power went offline over there and the full market crash. That can't continue to happen either if they're trying to bring this up into at least part of the new monetary system, in addition to a basket of currencies, gold, et cetera. And the carbon credit market, which we didn't talk about too much, but this whole carbon trading thing, you know, once your card goes to zero, they're not going to be able to, Randy, I'll call you back. They're not going to be able to, you know, having a forest, you know, you're creating your own carbon credits, but, you know, at that point, what? So you got these 3 different asset classes rising to create the new economic system: carbon credit, carbon market, if you, for a better word, the crypto and then the actual physical asset of some sort of basket of currency and gold. So where do you see the crypto going, and as part of this whole reset agenda, reset economic system?
Well, I mean, I think it's very obvious that crypto, that the whole entire kind of scene of crypto has been massively co-opted by corporations. I think 99% of cryptocurrencies are run by a centralized corporation with the CEO, COO, et cetera. We have to get past that. The original intention of Satoshi Nakamoto was to go P2P on transactions like you would originally with gold or silver. And of course, that's been all controlled and manipulated by large banking entities, including Bitcoin itself, which when they did the fork to Bitcoin Core in getting off the original intention because of scaling issues, we saw that they went into SegWit and Lightning networks. And of course, as you so profoundly mentioned, the way that the mining systems have become basically monopolies. And what's interesting too, David, with as we're coming into issues as we see with Europe right now and the UK with massive issues with natural gas and with the ability to generate power because of the green initiatives, which we know are another controlling mechanism. How is that going to play into proof of work? And also, what if we do have some revolution in terms of more free energy on the flip positive side? How would a proof of work model work if all of a sudden everybody's playing from the same field? So yes, proof of time is everything. And that's what Cordal is all based around. And it really makes a lot more sense. It's a much more Aquarian in that sense too. The metaphysics make a lot more sense. So I do believe that's where we need to be going. And that's what our platform is based upon. But in terms of where mainstream crypto is, I think it's a behemoth in the same way we're looking at mono agriculture. We're looking at all these other problems we've talked about today, which is very, very daunting. And it is scary to see where that's all going. And of course, with China, there will be a black market. There is already with people on the black market still mining crypto. And of course, the big push right now in crypto to counter proof of work, which is what you're talking about with mining, is proof of stake. Ethereum's talking about, well, they're already planning to go to proof of stake. All that is fiat 2.0. It's the same people who pre-mined the coin that own it, that will have the most consensual power on the protocols. So we know that is already dead in the water there. So it is interesting to see that most of crypto is done in my book. And the centralized exchanges are all manipulated and controlled by bots and by the key holders that are running that. So we must get resilient. We must get sovereign with crypto, which is what Cordal's all about. I am a fan of Pirate Chain. Hey, we even do direct P2P. So with Cordal, we have a decentralized exchange built into the project. That's true decentralized exchange, which is P2P, no intermediary, no steward, no one controlling your keys ever on the transaction. And that's going to be extremely important. But we even have cross-chain swaps going with Doge, because while Doge was a meme coin, it was actually like Bitcoin originally decentralized, no pre-mine, even though it's a proof of work coin. We need to focus on those kind of projects for now. So support the projects that are truly as most decentralized as they can be, and then look into projects like Cordal, like Pirate Chain, ones that are truly being run by a community that are open source, decentralized, no corporation behind it, not really focused on centralized exchanges. That's going to be really important because they are pushing for the unified digital dollar. That'll be a inflationary mechanism using the Satoshis, where essentially in your bank account, every second, as we talked about, I think on our first show with you, down the line of Satoshis, it's decreasing. It's decreasing in value. So you will not be able to save money, even worse than it is now with fiat, which we know is naturally massively inflationary. That is the plan. That's why they've destroyed crypto as best they can by using the corporate system, by using the Wall Street 2.0 ideology and forcing crypto down that path. But there are the underground fighting back. There is literally the Star Wars Jedi Knights that are working in the underground trying to combat it. So it is fascinating to watch, and it's also very sad to see where crypto's ended up. where it is now. But Barre and I are also big fans of hard currency, of gold, silver, even getting like copper, any kind of precious metals. I'm a big fan of junk silver, pre-1964 quarters and dimes. You're talking about the Amish earlier. I think that's going to be extremely viable way to transact. And I think it's going to be more than just a few people using that in the future. I think it's going to be massive. So I'm a big silver bug too, and gold, but big into silver, junk silver, smaller issuances of that currency that you'll be more easily able to transact with, right? So that's kind of where I'm standing right now with the economics currency system.
And I'm wondering who has satellite base station or be able to have satellite access to still be able to broadcast transactions if there's a grid down in the state or in the States or worldwide. But if you have a generator or some sort of solar capability to still be able to have you sat linked to be able to broadcast that up there, it doesn't really matter what's happening at this point. As long as you have that access point in and out, you can still, have value moving around the planet.
So with Cordo, we've thought of all this. The minting protocol, the way it works, you can literally run it on a Raspberry Pi with a small solar panel. And it's because it's based on time. You have to be connected to a network. We are developing a mesh networking protocol, working through micro communities, and that will connect with a node, whether that be a quote unquote satellite or that be through hardline infrastructure that we recapture through purchasing that. I am a big fan of the hardline because of the negative health effects of EMFs, right? Of wireless technology has a massive negative health effect on our bodies. So if we can figure out that infrastructure and find ways through lawful remedy to recapture that infrastructure from the corporations or redo it ourselves, or using, I think mesh networking is a really interesting solution for that. Yeah, so as you can tell, I'm pretty much a rabid optimist, though, in terms of having belief in that we are moving towards this greater consciousness. I think we should end on a high note here, Barre. And we're seeing it through our community. People are the law of attraction is more than ever from what I'm seeing. People are just flocking to us with solutions, with positivity coming here from, and people, David, just by the way, recently waking up. People are being shocked into realizing, whoa, this world's not what I thought it was. And they're coming to people like us, to people like you, to find solutions, and they're kind of in a rapid learning curve right now. And we thank God we still have the internet to learn from. So I'm a positivist. I believe we're developing solutions rapidly. I do believe that we're going to come out of this okay, but I do agree also with Barre that those that do not wake up to what's going on are going to be paying a heavy toll. The greatest technology is right here. We got to remember that, right, Barre? The greatest technology is us. So embrace it. We are full of solutions right inside our consciousness. Barre, last words from you.
Well, supply chain. What if we lived in a world where we understood the progenitor of all manifestation and we could recreate the waveforms for every element, make hybrids of elements? We no longer had to mine things out of the earth. We never, again, have to transport goods around the planet. We can create those waveforms to create these elements in a 3D printer kind of operation, set up assembly lines where you can make any part made out of anything you want, manufacture anything you want. And then when you're through with it, reverse the process and eliminate all the need for landfills and everything else. That technology, that understanding is here right now. And it's what we would in fact be doing right now if certain people weren't pulling our chains this whole time. And the only thing is that we're understanding now is we've allowed it. And now it's just time to, not try to figure out how to survive in their system, but create a parallel system where they become obsolete. And I think some great minds have already suggested that. But we have all the solutions right now. And we're, wringing our hands because we're trying to figure out how to navigate our needs through their system, which has already failed. There's going to be, again, an interim and a transition, and a lot of people will maybe choose not to do so well during that. But again, on a spiritual level, that's choice, and that's the journey of the soul.